everybody, and welcome to June's Author Nook. My name is Jordan H. Bartlett, and I am the author of Contest of Queens, Queen's Catacombs, and Queendom Come in the World of Freya. And I am joined today with the glorious and wonderful Sam Parrish. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, hey everybody. So excited to be here.
And I'm so excited to chat all about your book. Sam is the author of quite a few. So she's the author of the Anagovia Trilogy and the upcoming Off-Key Conspiracy. Oh, and here she's pulling up the trilogy for you to see.
Ah, they look nice. I think they look nice anyway.
Oh, they're beautiful. And look, I match. Ta-da!
Yay!
And we're going to be talking about book one of the Anagovia trilogy. You have had a month to read it. So if you have not read it and you're spoiler wary, you had time. Pause this, go read the book, and come back. We're going to be talking about when the world starts to fray. And our theme of June's Author Nook is building a party, building a world. So first things first, Sam, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about when the world starts to fray?
Hi again. I'm Sam, and as we've held up multiple times, I'm the author of the Anagovia Trilogy, which is heavily inspired by Dungeons and Dragons because I'm a huge nerd who's been playing it forever and a day. And we're down here in Florida where we're sweating to death.
And I love that it's about Dungeons and Dragons, and I love that you brought it up because when I was reading it, I was like, I just want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons stats, and it's such a love letter to bringing a bunch of different characters together and having them find a united purpose and stick together, build a family around each other's kind of strengths, weaknesses, and all of those pieces. It's so well done. I had a moment where I was like, man, she didn't even have them meet in a tavern. It's so beautiful how they just meet so organically. And I'm running away with these questions here. So we'll start with my first one. You said inspiration for your novel was Dungeons and Dragons, and with Dungeons and Dragons, we have these character creation moments. So, Leor is an elf. She's our female main character. She has a century of life experience under her belt before she joins forces with her human companions, and yet we rarely feel as though she's an adult among children, which is my worry when I'm thinking you've got this centuries old character with these kind of humans. So instead, we get this lovely group dynamic where every character feels as though they have an important role to play in the plot. When writing Leor, how did you keep that group dynamic balanced?
You have to build in flaws where your other characters can kind of fill in where this one is lacking. And yeah, she's had this century of experience and she's done all this stuff, but she's been focused here. And Leora is she's a loner to the point where that is a flaw and a problem for her, and that is her weakness, so she can only think of things like in this way. And so when I was thinking about these other characters, and like these are going to be more people person kind of characters that are going to make her confront that weakness that she has, and then they'll have a weakness that she can fill in the gap for. So it's just like any real life relationships kind of work the same way. You want to be like puzzle pieces, whether it's a romantic relationship or with your friends. Everybody has something to offer, but building those weaknesses in and letting your other characters come in to help keeps it balanced, I guess you could say, between like she can fight, she's very tactical, she's very she's like a realist, if a little bit of a pessimist, but she's not going to go negotiate something that requires any kind of tact. You send somebody else.
Yeah, and actually you've hit on such a good point because, and I was immediately thinking of, Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock and Watson, where Sherlock is a genius, but without Watson, he would almost be fully rejected by society, I would say, because he just doesn't know how to mesh with the other
Right,
people.
right.
And with Lior, you really get the sense that she is brilliant, but she's also seen some stuff. And she's lost people and she's had her heart broken. And so she's come to almost this point where she wants to make enough money and then disappear off into the woods and then come back when she's poor again, make enough money, disappear off into the woods. But it's
Mhm.
almost like she's got this extended life, but she's not living anymore. And then she meets Hashkin,
Right.
our hot, hot-tempered monk, which we'll talk about him in a sec because I loved him, and Emond, who, oh my gosh, I just imagine Kristoff if he were just a little more Viking, Kristoff from Frozen. And she's forced to like even just like talk to other people is a huge thing for her. So I think you did that really well, where you almost show her as being like immature in the way she's able to socialize, but overly mature in every other aspect.
Yeah, she's closed herself off to the point where like she doesn't, like you said, like she doesn't function normally anymore because she's built too many walls.
Totally, yeah. And she just needs someone to break them down, even if she's very resistant. You got to have that persistent, like, I'll just join you. I'll hang out. This will be fun.
No, we're gonna pick up this other guy. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's what did you call it? Travelers? Oh no, companions. The reason why they have to
Oh, camaraderie of the road.
yes, yeah. The camaraderie of the road. Duh. He's a comrade.
Yeah.
And so I want to jump ahead to talking about Hashkin, who I adored. He's a really interesting character because he is that hot-headed monk, which seems like quite the juxtaposing ideas. He's from a poor background and his faith really chose him. His calling was kind of knocking on his door. He feels like a character that's determined to chart his own course, and yet he's really forced to serve the needs of others, and he's stripped a lot of his even just like financial agency. He's forced to walk in the footsteps of all those monks. What role would you say duty plays in your novel?
Pretty big one. I was inspired a little bit, I think, of that conversation that Frodo and Gandalf have, where he's like, "Why do I have to like? Why me? Why now? Like, why do these things get put on my door?" That whole conversation, I love it, and I'm not even going to try to butcher it and quote it because it's just so good. But it's that kind of thing, and I played with that too in the following, like the second and third book, also I think a little more heavily. But it's like you're put in this situation where you can do something and you should, even if you don't really like it. And I think that's something that we deal with a lot in the present time too, where there's like all this crazy stuff happening. Like if you're in a situation where you can do something, you should do it, even if like your plan is to go off over here, that you can serve a greater purpose. I really liked that conflict of feeling like you're caught up in something bigger than yourself and you're being like swept into, because I really like plot focus heavy novels. I mean, I like character ones too, but I like the big epic plot stuff is really my jam. And like you're caught up in this and you're having to go do this because like how do you not try to save the world and still trying to have some choice and keep true to yourself while you do that, I thought was just like an interesting conflict that you could have. So I tried to like bear down on him a lot. And it's so great to hear what people have like he was never supposed to be as big of a deal in the books as he ended up being. I wanted the focus to be more on Lior. And then Hashkin just kind of showed up and I hated him so much at first because he was such a turd when I was writing him. And then like he had like this great like this character arc just came out of nowhere. And I was like, boy, what are you doing? Look at you stepping up. I'm so proud of you.
I love that. And it so speaks to, oh my gosh, I feel like as authors, you don't really realize until you're writing your own characters, but you are at their mercy a lot of the time, especially when you give them a trait where you're like, oh yeah, well, this one his downfall is his pride or his downfall is his like his actually I think for Hashkin it really is a matter of pride because he gets into
Mhm.
trouble when he feels disrespected or when he feels like he's being told to do something that's beneath him. That's where a lot of his conflict comes from. And so I can imagine as you're writing, you're kind of like, no, like, come back. The story is over here.
I'd be like, and then this happens. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna pitch such a fit. As you're right, like once you build them and you give them like you flush them out, then they're like real in your mind. So you have this thing happen, you're like, well, this is how they're gonna respond. They're gonna have an absolute come apart about this, and I'm gonna have to write it.
Yeah, no, but I just
Yeah.
loved his and Lior's dynamic too because again, she's this cool, collected. She's had a century to like rein in her temper, and then you've got Hashgan, and he wants to prove his cloth and he wants to prove his mettle, and whenever he's felt like he's being pushed to the sidelines or like held back from his true potential, he really does fight back. Uh, and so they have a really lovely connection because they kind of, like you say, their flaws and their strengths become puzzle pieces for one another. Which brings me to the audience fed question that I think it's got to be one of my favorites so far. A reader question is, did you ever ship Hashkan and Lior, or are you just evil?
Okay, so the very first iteration of the story I started writing when I was in college, and the plan was yes for them to get together, but then when I revisited it forever after later, um, I was like, but no, because they're too different, and they just I'm like they work so much better to me as like the found family and friends who help each other than as love interests because they're just I don't think the characters were as developed when I tried to write it when I was in college, and when I came back and I fleshed them out, I was like this wouldn't work. So there is no romance in my trilogy, um, which I think it's better for that in my opinion because it when you pick up a book and it's like yeah they just put them together just to put them
Mm.
together and these people don't work. I don't think they would have worked. But if you want to read something with a cute romance, first of all, Jordan's books. If you haven't already read those, which what are you doing? But the Off-Key Conspiracy that comes, my cozy fantasy that comes out in the fall has a really cute romance in it.
Oh, see, that's super exciting. Yeah, I'm so excited. We'll chat a little bit about the whatever you're able to share about the off-key conspiracy in a bit. But I actually really respect that this trilogy, it doesn't have a forced romance. Like if a romance comes into the plot as it does, like I would say Emmond would be our romantic character because he fell head over heels for I just imagined her to be Queen Victoria or like the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland.
Yes,
And right? So I'm excited to see where
that's her
that
vibe.
goes. Yeah. But
Emmons loves everybody. Everybody.
he's
He's a
just got a
ladies' man.
heart.
He just he's one of the like you're like scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or something, and there's this guy pops up every now and then where he like just is reacting to women's videos. He's like, "We love it. We love this. We love it." That's Emin vibes. He just loves women. He just loves everything about them all the time.
And it's beautiful
Green
because he
flag.
loves them in a very like she is my goddess, she is my queen kind of way, which we often don't
Hmm.
see in fantasy. And I think it's why I usually gravitate towards fantasy written by women because we get less
Yes.
of that objectification love and more of that like soul to soul, heart to heart love. And I want to circle back because I think when I was reading Hashgun and Lior, I loved that he definitely has a crush on her. He definitely admires her. And we see this like puppy dog love. But it made me think of Aragon, where you've got Aragon, who's a 17-year-old boy, I think, by the end of the novel, and Arya, who was the reason why I wanted to run off to the woods when I was a kid. But she's like this ancient elf, and it always felt weird that he was trying to put those two characters together. And I love that, spoilers for Aragon series, they didn't end up together because I get why he wants to be with her, but why would she be with him? So it feels the same with Hashgun and Lior, where it's like,
Yeah.
I get why he's obsessed with her, but she's kind of, again, she's an adult among children, and that would just feel weird. So thank you for not forcing
It is.
that.
No, I felt like it was an important part of his character development too, that he can be a like close to a woman, a female character, and it doesn't have to be romance. Like
Mhm.
you can have positive, like a close, like you can be best friends, don't have to be in a romance. And I think that was important for him because he's in that situation as a weaver, and everybody's obsessed with weavers, where he could just be like like a little bit of rock star situation, like oh, I can have anybody I want. And I think it was important for him, his development too, to be like, actually, I can't, but it's okay. I
Exactly,
thought
yeah.
that was important.
Boys and girls be friends, and you can have those attractions, but it doesn't mean that it will always end up in a relationship
Right.
with the white picket fence and all that jazz. No, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And can you share a favorite quote or passage from When the World Starts to Fray?
There is a part it's kind of like in the middle of the book where Hashkin ends up in a different gathering, which is kind of like the churches for the magic users in Anagovia. And this one's totally different than where he studied and where he thought he would find himself. And the head weaver there, the guy in charge, tells him, let me actually find it because I'll misquote myself. It's not even long. It says, a fire glows on its own. Try to squeeze out more light and you'll smother it. And I just, when that came out, I was like, man, that was pretty good. But it's just like, things can be good on their own and be perfect as they are. You don't have to always try to squeeze more out of it to to make it good. In the pursuit of perfection, you miss out on things that are already excellent and they can be excellent with the things that are flawed in it, which is, like anything you write, anything you play on an instrument, any art piece that's made is perfect as it comes, even with the things that are wrong with it. At least
Hmm.
that's how that quote felt to me when I
Yeah. And I
put it
love that
down.
idea. It's really like that, like don't gild the lily, or the reason why people love to listen to music on an old record with the scratches and the pops
Mhm.
versus something overly cleaned up. And no shade to Emma Watson, but like the pitch altered version of her music in Beauty and the Beast was torn apart because it's like you tried to make it so perfect and she can sing and you should have just let her sing.
Yeah,
And in perfecting that pitch the way they did, it just like it,
it takes away.
yeah, it took the realness out of what could have been a really beautiful song. Or no, I love that quote because I think it's important. This is where fantasy is the best genre. We're not biased at all. But fantasy allows us to really look at our world through a specific lens. Like it takes all the stuff, like all the minutiae away, and you can really focus on important messages, important character development, important themes. And I think that's a really good one. Perfection in our world is adding too many filters and taking the same video 50,000 times so you get that perfect cadence, where really the beauty of being human are those little flaws and imperfections.
Mhm. Like when you go and you see live music and maybe the band kind of veers off a little bit or the guitar solo goes longer than normal and it makes it that much better because everybody's in it in that moment together, like you're getting like caught up and swept away. That is, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we have
Yeah,
a visitor.
totally. Is there anything that you've added to your novel that you really geek out over?
You know, So a big inspiration to when I first started writing these, and it's still an inspiration for like everything I've worked on since, was Ari Salvatore's like the Dark Elf trilogy and the Icewind Dale trilogy. He wrote those set in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting for Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. And he had such good combat. And for some people, it might have been a little too detailed because he can get into like the nitty gritty of how stuff works. But it led me to like do a whole bunch of research on combat. I took Krav Maga, which wasn't necessarily entirely for writing, but like it definitely paid off to write. And getting to do like research on weapons and medieval, like the HEMA, the historical European medieval, um, like fighting stuff, like I can dive into that and just stay stuck in there forever. So anytime that I get to be like, oh, and they had an arming sword and they fought like this and they did all this, and like anytime I'm getting to do that, like I will carry it off on such a tangent. And then 3 hours goes by and all I've done is research different shaped shields and why certain ones worked better in certain situations. So that's been my big geeky thing.
And I will say the
But
combat in your novel is very well done. I love it because the whole time it felt like you, the reader, were a camera pan. So you could see what everything looked like. You could see where everyone was. And you were never left like, oh, wait, how many swords has she drawn? Or like, how many arrows does she have? Like, I
I'm
love that
sorry.
reference to where the swords were, how many arrows were left, and when they run out, what do you do? Like it was very precise, which I find sometimes when you're reading combat, it's almost like you skip because it's like, okay, they're fighting, they're fighting, they're fighting, and they won. Perfect. Yeah, you did a beautiful job with those combat scenes.
Thank you.
And so you mentioned the off-key conspiracy. Can you tell us a little bit more about this project?
Yes. So it is a cozy fantasy. It is following a bard. She's a violinist, and she went on her first adventure excursion, and it went terribly. So now she's stuck back at home working at her family's tavern, and she kind of hates it. But while she's there, she like accidentally on purpose starts investigating a murder mystery with her friends, while she's working through the fallout from her disastrous attempted adventuring. And it's just a really cute, feel good, cozy. I loved writing it. And it comes out on September 9th. And I am about to, as of recording of this, to open up for people if they're interested in getting an ARC copy, a digital ARC copy. So if you want to read a cozy fantasy early, you can reach out to me on Instagram, TikTok, Threads. It's all under Swamp Sage Books, spelled just regular, all one word.
Perfect. And what I'll do is I'll put that information in the little description. This will come out on Spotify and YouTube, and then we'll do some pieces on Instagram too. So if you aren't able to find her, you're not looking hard enough. It's all going to be there for you. And for those who don't know, ARCs are advanced reader copies, and they're really cool to get your hands on because basically you're able to read it before the rest of the world. And you're able to provide those early reviews that really support authors like us who
Yeah.
we're just doing our best out here to put a ripple in the pond. It really supports us ahead of the book coming out to gain some traction. So, because this book sounds fantastic and because I adored the writing in this book, and I can imagine that if it was less end of the world, nightmare creatures, the world falling apart themes, the coziness would be so lovely coming into summer, autumn. Do get your hands on it. Why not? It's free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for joining me today. It's been such a treat chatting about your world.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was fun.
So, Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for joining wherever you are at home, whether it be with the podcast or with the video. If you liked what you heard, please rate, give it a follow, and share it with like-minded friends. If you enjoyed this video, enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing because I release a new episode every month with no set date. So a subscription or a follow means you don't miss anything. However you wound up here, I hope you're well and living magically.